a decent transition to our one news story of the day.
Yes.
So, so as far as go away Yahoo News. So if
Yeah.
I pop out this video, can I make it go away? Okay, it's out of the
Okay. Okay.
it's no
I
longer
yeah,
visible from streaming end.
good. Yeah. I don't want to look at. I don't want to look at the guy in the White House. I don't.
All right. I thought this was an interesting little bit of corporate brinksmanship.
Mhm.
Now, before we get into this, I'll just make the disclosure. I do own a small stake in Comcast stock. So make of that what you will as far as any bias I might have.
Yeah. And I will say I don't own any Comcast stock. I used to own Disney stock, but I don't anymore. So but I am annual pass holder at Disney World and Vacation Club. So make of that what you will.
Yep. So, so the history of Hulu is kind of interesting. I have a variety of articles here. So back in September of 2022,
Mhm.
actually, no, let's go back even further. No, I had a article that went into the history a bit more. Oh well. Oh, also, I wanted to bring this up at the start of this because this is the one that people are most likely to accidentally stumble across who aren't regular viewers.
Oh,
Um, Comic book great Peter David had a stroke earlier this year. He's possibly my favorite comic book writer of all time, if I actually think about the series I've read over time. And he's still recovering. They're having to do uh, getting his catheter out
mm,
because he's not been doing great. So if we'll have the link to this GoFundMe in the final video.
yeah,
So if you can give anything, it would mean a lot for an old man who's brought joy to a lot of people.
yeah. And if you've got the link right now, you can put it in the chat too.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm just gonna pull up YouTube over on this one here. So while we get into that, uh, while I do that,
Yeah.
basically the history of Hulu is that one of the interesting things that Midnight's Edge has brought up is they have discussed the streaming wars less as a uh, less as like a competition between cable channels, which is how people usually see it, and more of a like more of a format war along the lines of like DVD versus. Well, actually, DVD didn't really have a competition, did it? Maybe DivX for a hot minute,
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe.
but okay, Betamax versus VHS
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah. Blu-ray and HD DVD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you already say that? No, I wasn't
Nope.
paying attention. Oh,
I managed to avoid that one
okay.
somehow. At the obvious current example.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and I think that it's intriguing because like because they technically kind of had the agreed upon format originally, which was Hulu. Like Hulu, I believe Hulu has been in the past modestly profitable. It's like Hulu. There are a couple of unique shows on there. Like there was some superhero show I used to watch, like an animated one.
Yeah. And yeah. The only two shows that I can think of right now that would be remotely popular would be like Handmaid's Tale
Hmm.
and Only Murders in the Building.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Only Murders in the Building. That's probably their biggest one. And I
Yeah.
like Handmaid's Tale. I can't tell if that's actually popular or if it's just popular with people who make the news.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point there.
But it was basically a co-owned venture, and apparently Comcast, or I believe Comcast, was partially responsible for this idea, from what
Hmm.
I had read. Um, and it was like a conglomerate of different interests, like Fox, NBC. and so on.
Yeah. Oh, and Hulu has The Bear, but I don't know if that's popular.
I can't say I've heard of that one.
I've heard of it, but I can't tell you what it's about.
They also debuted Prey on there, which we watched last year for the show.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not like it has nothing, but it's not in that Netflix or even that Mandalorian thing.
Right. Yeah.
But Hulu was mainly there as a way to actually remember this at the time when Hulu was fairly fresh. Bart was making a joke about tune in at 7:30 or tomorrow on Hulu,
Yeah.
and like a season's 20 just Simpson episode that I happened to catch.
Yeah.
Because they used to be ad supported with no you could have it for free. Then it became paywalled with ads or not ads, and the option for live TV. It was basically like the industry's attempt to make a cable alternative.
Yeah. Yeah. They were trying to make it like Sling and
Direct TV maybe.
yeah, maybe yeah, DirecTV. Yeah.
So I think that is so that where that kind of fell apart was, well, you Warner Brothers got out, I believe, at one point.
Mm.
They had been in it, they got out. Disney bought Fox, which upped their stake to 67%. Comcast bought NBC Universal, and I feel like they also bought somebody else who they bought in on.
Yeah, maybe. I can't think of it.
So
Yeah.
basically went from like a wide ranging bucket of supporters to two.
Yeah.
And it's basically domestic only. A lot of what we see on Hulu here in the States is available as part of Disney Plus internationally.
Right. Yeah. They do have some anime on there, which is interesting.
One thing I've noticed is that since Sony brought Crunchyroll and Funimation, is that they have been very willing to license that out everywhere because Hulu has anime, Paramount Plus has some anime. There's old anime on services like Pluto and Tubi.
Yeah. Netflix has some anime. Yeah.
Netflix, you can watch Demon Slayer season 3 on there at the same time as you can watch it on Crunchyroll, which you would think that would be like a golden goose, but I think they'd rather just take the licensing fee than insist on people paying for their niche service.
Yeah.
So, so that's all. Basically, off of that Animu tangent.
Mm.
Um, so Hulu ended up having two buyers, and at the time, Comcast and Disney came up with their deal was that either one of them could, at a certain point, force a sale of the remaining part of the company to Disney.
Mm.
At the time, this probably seemed like a good deal because Hulu was at its peak strength and everyone was trying to get into streaming. And so, yeah, of course, exclusive access and ownership of Hulu sounds like a great idea.
Mm.
Fast forward, and you have some interesting things going on. So first off, 2024 is where we have this. 2024 is early 2024 is where we have this. And this article I pulled up earlier, late last year, September 2022, which is nearly a year ago. And oh my God, where did this year go?
I don't know.
Um, Comcast executives were expecting Disney to stick to its agreement to acquire the remaining stake in Hulu. So this was not a surprise to anybody. Like it's been well
Yeah.
telegraphed.
Yeah.
The amount I have heard thrown around for how much Comcast's stake is worth, I believe Bob Iger was trying to softball it at $9 billion. Where Comcast and Disney, according to Yahoo Finance here, via AOL, which is what I just happened to find when I was doing searches for it. So that AOL and Yahoo are owned by the same company at this point, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so according to Wall Street Journal, NBC Universal executives estimated Hulu's valuation to be more than $70 billion in 2021.
9 billion, 70 billion. That's a
Well,
pretty big gap there.
well, So it's slightly less of a gap, but still ginormous because that 9 billion is what Disney was like, where Iger was, as memory serves, talking about them being worth,
Yeah.
uh, which would, if it's, would basically put the company at around 27 to 30 billion or so.
Yeah.
So 70 million. What is a third of 70 billion? Why am I multiplying instead of dividing? I am too used to doing ratios and dividend payment calculations, stuff like that.
Ah.
That would be a $23 billion price tag, which is roughly what that 9 billion amount is, what Disney seems to think that the company as a whole is worth,
Yeah.
almost.
Jeez. Just a small amount of 70 billion. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, just pocket change, because after all, Disney's doing great, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like that's what they paid for 20th Century Fox.
No, yeah, that's kind of hilarious that when you, and also Comcast is partially responsible for that 70 billion price tag because they kept also bidding up the cost of Fox when Disney was trying to buy it.
Yeah.
Do,
Oof.
do you feel like Comcast is trying to destroy Disney? Because it feels like they're trying to destroy Disney.
It certainly seems that way. Yeah. Or at least cripple it.
Right, because it's, I mean, God, just think about that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like, they managed to get, ramp up the cost of Fox tens of billions just by
Yeah.
being about the only media player in town who could realistically buy it.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers was part of AT&T at that point, and that was like the biggest other entertainment player.
Yeah. Yeah. It certainly wasn't Viacom. Yeah.
No. Also, it occurs to me that I keep talking about the calculator, so I'm glad I keep reading the numbers off because the way I'm sharing the screen, it isn't actually visible on the audience's end.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if I should say anything about it or not. I'm sorry.
If I do something stupid, please let me know.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Okay.
So,
Mm.
um, Comcast reportedly weighed purchasing Disney's majority stake at one point, but changed course due to content rights concerns as a significant portion of Hulu's content is owned by Disney. Yeah, that's the other thing is that all the Fox and Disney stuff on there, like Prey, they would have
Mhm.
to pay. They would not only have to pay 23 billion. How much is the two-thirds stake worth if Comcast thinks it worth it? Yeah, 46 billion to then get to pay Disney for licensing rights forever to keep the same amount of content.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, as like I was saying, we have a significant disagreement in the cost here,
Yeah.
and I decided to do a little bit of research because we I believe we talked about last year Netflix's major stock crash, and realized that I hadn't actually looked up to see how it was doing since then. So I took a few screenshots. Let's see here. So let's compare some peers here.
Okay.
So if you had bought Netflix at its trough last year when they actually lost subscribers and everybody panicked at the same time, uh,
Yeah.
if you'd managed to buy it at the exact right moment, $164.28 per share is now kissing 400.
Wow.
That doubled your money in a year.
Wow.
Um, If we take a look at Comcast themselves, which Comcast is actually harder to compare because most of their money comes from their cable business.
Right.
That was actually an amusing thing when I was watching the Valiant Renegade live stream about the Comcast shareholder thing. Was that none of the Wall Street analysts actually asked interesting questions about Mario Brothers or other things like that. It was all about the cable business, phone business, cable business, phone business, international TV business.
Okay.
Because that's not where their bread and butter is.
Right. Yeah.
But from a similar trough, which I think it looks like it was around the same time as the Netflix sell-off,
Mm.
uh, you wouldn't have doubled your money, but maybe 50% higher at the peak, 33 to 50% higher.
Mm.
So okay, so there was a bit of a panic last year, but all these media companies seem to have recovered, right? Oh,
Oh, yeah. And now you know why I don't own Disney stock anymore.
Yeah. It's been on a downturn for a bit, and it keeps going down. Although they did manage to actually, are they still out of the 90s? Let's find out. Or out of the 80s, I should say. Disney stock at 92.53. So it recovered a bit from the most recent dump where everybody was panicking. But the thing that I've heard people talk about is how Disney supposedly has no money sitting around. Like I've heard of Valiant Renegades of the accounts on there saying 200 million
Yeah.
on hand, but I didn't want to just take that at face value, so I decided to look up Disney's annual stock report for 2022 and just see what all they had. Their quarter and their fiscal year ended like last in April, I believe.
Okay.
So, in terms of on-hand cash, and on April 2nd of 2022, they reported cash equivalents, and restricted cash end of period 13 billion versus 10 billion. So their on-hand reserves have gone down some,
Uh,
which means that if they were to buy up that Comcast stake, they better hope it's that $9 billion amount. Because by all indications, the options are either to borrow it at higher interest rates, um, give Comcast a large chunk of Disney stock, or some combination of the two.
oof.
Mexican Iron Man was actually talking about how if they were to do that full amount in Disney stock, it would make Comcast their biggest shareholder with more like a 14% stake at current stock prices,
Oh.
which might actually be illegal.
Oh, okay.
He didn't speculate that. I'm thinking, well, I recall when Elon Musk was trying to buy up Twitter, he was playing games with staying under that 10% threshold at first.
Right, yeah.
Because like once you hit a certain ownership percentage, you got to start disclosing, and you suddenly become very visible.
Yeah.
And that might actually be an antitrust concern if Comcast owned too much of Disney, considering everything else they own.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So my overall conclusion here is that again, if Comcast hasn't been trying to destroy or cripple Disney on purpose, they've been doing a good job of it accidentally because they keep making Disney overspend for things that they shouldn't have spent for in the first place.
Yeah.
Like a $9 billion payday for their share of Hulu that would fund a lot of Universal Studios expansion in Florida.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
They're also working on one in Texas, of all things.
Hmm. Oh, that makes sense because it's a good climate. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, barring the occasional random snowstorm, but
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that's basically what I've distilled from reading up on financial documents, looking up articles, listening to um, Mexican Iron Man and Valiant Renegades speak on it.
Okay.
It's it's going to be a very interesting situation to follow, just because again, this is why Dave Ramsey says to have 6 months of expenses on hand at any time. They basically it's the equivalent of not having an e fund.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, it just seems like Disney has been they have not been making sound business decisions, and of course the guy that's been making in charge of those decisions is Bob Iger, who
Yep,
you know
the once and future CEO.
yes, it's yeah.
So it's just a fascinating, very elaborate story that is going to be fun to watch unfold and see if Disney is able to. Yeah, the other thing is that at the time it was seen as a good deal to make both sides able to force the sale because it's like, oh yeah, of course we're going to want all of Hulu. Oh, yeah, of course we're going to want to sell our stake in Hulu. But boy, in retrospect,
Yeah, not such a good
it
idea.
should have made it so that it had to be a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get into our discussion topic. I will be right back.
Okay.
So, Daniel, entertain the people.
Okay.
put on a show or something. I don't know. It's up to you.
All right. Well, let's see. Let me think. Okay. A I got nothing, folks. Here, I could just play a bunch of clips here. Well, okay. I will say this. I guess I could do a little promotion. Guardian Angel is, of course, still on in demand on Indiegogo. Link is in the description down below, and of course, DB's books are down below as well. Links to those. Um, if you didn't see the updates on the campaign page, uh, we've got Bogdan has 8 pages left to draw in color, so we're getting it's getting close to being done, at least drawn and colored anyway. And then once that's done, it'll go into the lettering, and then after lettering, it's on to production. So I don't know if it'll make the August deadline or not, but hope. But obviously, I'll keep everybody apprised of it. Um, and of course, and if I hadn't mentioned this before, part two is the script for that is done. So once part one gets through or gets done, production and drawn and everything, um, Bogdan and I will move right into part two. So yeah, and so yeah, the fun times there. Chinggis, here, got your question here. If Disney goes kaput, what'll happen to all the stuff they bought? Um, I don't see Disney necessarily going kaput. They would probably sell them from us, the taxpayer, which um, you know that I wouldn't want that at all. Um,
That financial situation does kind of add a little bit of credence to that rumor that George Lucas offered to buy Star Wars back from Disney.
yeah,
A little bit of credence. I don't tend to actually think it's too realistic, but
yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. I think some of a lot of that's probably wishful thinking.
yeah.